Alright, so I'm going to label this shopping cart theory. This is the theory of how people become political extremists. Alright, so here's how I think that political extremism works. You hear something, you believe it, without checking your sources, and then you throw that into the shopping cart. You're originally starting off with a basket. Then you read more about this specific topic, and you're like, this all seems to agree with my point of view. So you throw it in the basket. And then you hear other people who think the same way as you, and you're like, wow, there's actually a lot of people who think the same way as me. Throw that in the basket. Now you suddenly need a cart because you put so much in the basket that you're starting to overflow it. Then you suddenly start listening to them and thinking their opinions are so in line with your own that you throw them in the basket as well. And then you grab something, you see it, and you start agreeing with everything they're saying and becoming yes men. Throw that in the basket. Suddenly you think everybody who has ever talked to you agrees with you. Throw that in the basket. Nobody really goes against your opinion, so you throw that in the basket as well, because even though it is so extreme at this point, nobody is going to say, maybe you should, cool it a little. But no, you throw that in the basket as well. Then you start thinking that everybody agrees with you because nobody is going to call you out on it. So you throw that in the basket. Then when someone finally comes to the ability that they can come at you and be like, this is wrong, you ignore them, so you throw that in the basket. And then it keeps piling on. It keeps piling on. You're fed misinformation all the time, but you keep piling it on, keep piling it on, keep piling it on, keep piling it on, until it gets to the point where you're creating political violence. And then you have to look at yourself in the mirror and think to yourself, what have I become? Who have I become? What made me this way? Because it's not something that happens overnight. Political extremism happens over a long period of time, and this is just stuff that I've noticed from political extremists. So that's how political extremism happens, in my opinion. I don't actually know. I'm not an extremist, to my knowledge. But yeah, I guess I've kind of collected some things. Obviously, there's political extremists on both sides, and I'm not going to deny that. But if anybody is going to call for violence or anything like that, then we need to discuss that, because it's not right. Making jokes is one thing, but calling someone to incite violence or anything like that, that's another thing entirely. Making jokes, not unforgivable. But once you start encouraging violence, or even if it seems like it's minuscule in the grand scheme of things, then we've created a monster. If you're going to attack somebody unprovoked, then you've created a monster. If you're going to be like, this person disagrees with me, so thus you need to do everything that I say and what I do, I'm sorry, you're a dictator. That is literally what dictators do. And anybody who disagrees with me, you know what? Dictator. It doesn't matter if you don't have power. You can still be a dictator and not hold a place of power. And people are just so afraid of you that they'll never speak out. So you wonder how dictators are started and how political extremists are started. They're one and the same thing. They're one and the same thing. You just don't want to acknowledge it because clearly it's staring you right in the face, and you don't want to acknowledge the fact that there's similarities between these two things. So they'll stomp out anyone who disagrees with them. So yes, they're dictators.